members searching, singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. I'm Fahima Mohammed, your host, a certified relationship and couples coach as well. Welcome everyone who's watching. We want to welcome everyone here from British Muslim TV, to whoever is viewing wherever you are across the globe. And if you're streaming live on Sky TV channel 752, or whether it's Twitter or Facebook, a really, really warm welcome to all of you. I'm really grateful to be hosting on the show and to bring in some amazing, interesting guests and discuss some really, really crucial topics. And it's all around relationships. Just want to remind the viewers that you can participate if you want to, and you can do so by dialing in on the number below, which is 01924231083. Standard network rates do apply, so do ask the bill payer's permission before calling in. You do have an option to contact us via WhatsApp with any messages or comments, which I will read out on the show. And that is a free service and can be also anonymous if you wish so. And that number is 07585835150. Now, tonight's topic, it is something which is very sensitive, and we're here not to discuss the actual religious rulings, as that is very clear for our faith as well as many other faiths. And we do have other programs where we do have scholars to give the really intricate sort of rulings around this. We are a show that is based around halal courtship, which is all around dating in a way which is applicable to the Islamic way, as well as when it comes to relationships, if you're married, looking for a spouse, or even after marriage. So this is a show which addresses some of the challenges that relationships come across. And we do have so many messages and emails that have addressed a lot of the issues that we do raise on the show, and tonight is no different. We do have a scholar that we have on a different program that can answer your queries with regards to the rulings. But like I said, again, this is a show for relationships and the issues that raised around it. And inshallah, we're going to have a guest tonight who is very brave, who's coming on to speak about his experience, as well as how to move forward from this discussion with people with those tendencies. And with me tonight, we have Ali Asad Jaffery. Assalamu alaikum, Ali.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on tonight. We are talking about same-sex attraction. Now, the show is all about relationships, and there's so many underlying issues regarding that. And as I've explained, one of them is people having an identity issue with regards to their sexuality. And regardless of whether or not they have the faith in mind that they are practicing, the thing is, we have discussed many issues on the show, including this one tonight, which also comes across as disliked or not acceptable in our faith. And this is only just one of the many sorts of things that is not allowed. But at the same time, we are not here to discriminate. We are not here to actually go into the rulings, but we're talking about what does it mean to have those desires and how do we work around it? So you tell me firstly about yourself and a little bit about your story and why you're with us tonight.
Thank you, Sister Fahima, for that introduction. And yes, so to share from my story, I knew from a very young age that I didn't really connect with the other boys. It was almost something I couldn't really communicate at that age. And it was, I may have been 5 when I looked at other boys and I was like, oh, they're rough and tumble, and that's not really me. And I'd grown up with my sisters and really felt more secure in the feminine. this confusion with masculinity stayed until I was of 12, and I was, going through puberty at that time. And what was familiar for me at that time was the feminine, and what was unfamiliar was my own sex, my own gender. And so my attraction at that time, because we are attracted to what is opposite, was the same sex. I come from a very religious family. This deeply conflicted with my faith, and at the time there was no help or no support for Muslims who have this inner struggle where the faith is telling them one thing and their desires, which are coming from within, and it's not something that I really chose to have these desires. And while we know the ruling is very clear, there wasn't any practical solutions on how to live a life in Islam for this. I didn't tell anybody for 11 years. When I had found out when I was 12, it was at 23, which I opened up to a university counselor about these issues. And then from that point onwards, I was able to speak up and get help.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just want to also remind the viewers that, Ali is with us tonight, being very brave to express his past, and that story is his past. Right now, where are you, Ali? And you did talk about having some assistance. What did that look like? And what is that for the Muslim community when there is assistance or support for people that are in conflict with faith and desire?
Yes. So alhamdulillah, I'm at a place now where I've been able to reconcile my same-sex attractions with my faith. I was able to find someone who loved me for this. I'm married. I got married in 2019, and we have a nine-month-year-old son. And as you can imagine, it took me a huge searching in my soul, a huge jihad al-nafs, as we would say, to reach to a place where for 11 years I wouldn't tell anybody. To today, I'm on this show and I'm speaking about it. And I think that the change which I saw was, and the therapy which helped me, had nothing to do with sex and sexuality. It had all to do with my self-esteem, how I saw myself, how I compared myself with other men, and more noticeably, the shame and guilt which I carried in that comparison. And once I was able to see myself as the same as other men and not have that internal comparison that I was less than them or I wasn't the same as them, and I was able to find congruency in my gender and how I looked at masculinity, that's when I started to see a decrease in the same-sex attraction, and it opened up the possibility for me to be married, have a child, and live a life of taqwa, live a life congruent with my value system.
That is really amazing, and it's very inspirational. Your story is very different to a lot of people, and we're not here to sort of share this information in order for it to sort of represent everybody that's going through these kinds of feelings. There are a lot of people who are Muslim and they actually want to continue in that path. And who do they turn to? What do they do? And what is the support out there for them? And you also mentioned as well that you are married. Would you advise somebody who has those tendencies of same-sex attraction to actually speak about it beforehand to their potential spouse? I mean, at the end of the day, there is a worry, there's a concern with your future wife, knowing that you did have those sort of tendencies before. So how would you address it? Like I said, this is a relationship issue. This is nothing else with, regards to religion. This is about right now, we know the stance, but people still have these kind of experiences and they are confused as to what do they do? And if they're still feeling it, where do they go? And if they're not in that path like you anymore, then, where is the support?
Yeah, I'd like to start with the path that people take. It might be that some of you might be watching and, you identify as LGBTQ because that's an identity or that's something that came to you and you've reconciled your faith with that. And there's no doubt that the LGBTQ community has faced a lot of discrimination in the Muslim community. In that this topic alone, no matter kind of where you are or which spectrum you sit on it, is something which is difficult to talk about in our community. Like we know it's a sensitive topic. So I think it's really worth mentioning that the societal pressure which is there prevents Muslims from getting support because the topic in itself, unfortunately, is sometimes difficult for us to fathom or to see. But I guess I'm here to say this is a reality. It's a reality of the world that we are living with. And when we look at the identity, I want to break the identity up because, people say,
that is amazing, Ali. And you know what? We're going to continue with that because we are coming into a short break. And you've obviously, started something here, which is amazing. And I really want to pick this up after the actual break. And I want to remind the viewers again, this is a live call-in show. And I would love to engage with any of you that have your opinions and any sort of questions or comments. Ali's being very brave tonight to actually share his past story and his current, as well as we've got so much more to go into. And I would love to have you join us again in a few moments where we'll be picking up this conversation with Ali on the same-sex attraction in the community. And inshallah, I hope to see you soon. Stay exactly where you are. See you in a short while. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. We are addressing a very sensitive issue tonight, and I do appreciate you tuning in and watching in. And I would also appreciate the engagement and let me know your thoughts. Please be aware that we have a guest tonight who is extremely brave and is sharing his story. But at the same time, there is a real issue in the community where people are struggling and they have no support and they don't know what to do. And these are real dilemmas that are going on in the community, whether it's this topic or anything else. And we're here to only address it from a relationship point of view as to if you are going into a relationship and you do have these desires, then, what is it that we need to sort of tackle? So Ali, we were talking before the break with regards to having the different types of sexuality and the way in which people identify themselves. Now, would you advise somebody or guide them? Because I know you are a trainee counsellor, and at the same time, there's a lot going on in, with regards to therapy, as well as, at the end of the day, what do we do? And therapy in itself is sort of like a way where the outcome is not from the therapist, but the actual client. So when we talk about the help that you received and what does that look like, and how do Muslims move forward if they are maybe confused or they want to explore further into their sexuality to figure out where they are? Because in any relationship, it's only fair that both parties are aware of what they want in order to move forward in a good relationship. So if they're not, happy or content, or they're not sure, then what do they do?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. The therapeutic space is there, which is driven by the client. It's driven by the person who goes in. So, especially for me, when I went into therapy the first time, which was cognitive behavioral therapy, the therapist was very much pro-gay. So she tried to force me down a narrative, which was that I had a mantra in my head, which was keeping me away from the gay identity. And that was a really damaging therapy for me, because the therapist completely dismissed my value system, my autonomy of where I wanted to go. So I think as a counselor, it's very important that we take a client-centric approach, which means that we listen to the client in which direction they want to move. And as a therapist or as a counselor, we don't have a bias towards, one sexuality or another. Now, especially for Muslims who, like myself, may be struggling with unwanted same-sex attraction, there wasn't really any help available. And I think this is the key point, that you can have the attraction, which you did not choose, but you can understand the attraction and go deeper into the causes of that attraction, understand what the core needs are behind the attraction, through counseling, through coaching. And that listening space needs to be there and needs to be given. And that's what I decided to do with in being a counselor. And so it wasn't something which I initially decided to do, but because of the lack of support in this area, especially from a lens where we are trying to have the taqwa, trying to stay true to ourselves. I mean, to be honest, for me, I did not need the outside validation. So I didn't need Islam, or I didn't need my parents, or I didn't need an external influence to tell me that something was wrong, that there was a difference between lust and love. I knew that I had a conflict which I needed help with. It wasn't an external factor which was pushing me. And I think that's really, really important, that it's the client that determines the direction, and they're not being coerced, they're not being forced. There is no external narrative which is driving them this way, and we need to support those people, because that's the direction they want to go.
Well, from what I'm hearing is that if you are going to seek professional help, there is a tendency of or a way where you can actually go down that route, which is even more towards you wanting to be having the same sex attraction. And it's less where if the client is struggling and trying to get out of it, from what you're saying. So you've got that, but it's not all therapists or counselors in that way. On the other hand, we have family, and we have obviously the Muslim community, or most faith backgrounds, that would not even support this. So if there was someone, a relative, a friend, that actually will want to come out and disclose their same-sex attraction in a healthy way, how would you guide that? Because I find that right now that there's no real safe space for that to happen, without them even trying to figure things out, but a safe space for them to be open about it so they can actually explore the direction that they want to go towards and do it in a healthy way, which is not detrimental, because we don't also want to coerce people in a way where later on we have had people come on the show say, you know, I was married to someone for so many years. At the beginning, there were sort of red flags about them having the same sex attraction. But like, you know, 6 years later with kids, they've gone back to that. So we need to be very careful that even if you are thinking in those lines, it has to be done in a way where you have to be sure, because it's not just fair to yourself, but also your potential spouse.
Absolutely. And, you know, a huge part of this is the shame in our communities, which exists for just having the same sex attraction, let alone, you know, the act. It's just the feeling is something that is very difficult for people. And we've had so many people come to us and say, we need a support network. How do we tell our friends? How do we tell our families? And what I recommend is that if you start off the conversation and, you know, if you say I'm gay, for example, that doesn't help, and then that they will look at that as an identity. Whereas for people who are coming forward, the best way to open up about this issue is to walk the individual with what has happened. So for most of us, that means there might have been some familial issues, early childhood issues, especially in terms of the same-sex parent, how they view their gender, how their interpersonal relationships are with the other gender, how they may have been traumatic events, either with other peers, either with their parents, or with other caregivers, and how that has developmentally led them to a confusion with their gender, and then subsequently a confusion in their sexuality. When I mean confusion in the gender, I don't mean generally gender dysphoria. What I mean is a private self of confidence that I identify as a man or I identify as a woman. And it's that primal sense of that says I'm a man or I'm a woman, that innate sense of self. When that is disturbed, then you know, there's a potential for same-sex attraction. So if when we tell friends, when we tell family, and we do need to tell friends and family, because this isn't something which is to be shamed about. It isn't something that we chose. We don't choose to have these sexual attractions. It's a reality. So the best way is telling them in a developmental way. And obviously you have to understand how the development has happened, and then have some friends who know, and maybe have some friends who don't know, but have that support network where you can tell people and that it's okay. And you know, alhamdulillah, we are seeing a lot of awareness about this in the community, and the right type of understanding from our scholars, which is you know, very heartwarming to see that what these individuals need at the moment is support, it's love, it's acceptance, and from either side, if we hide and if we don't come forward with this, and we don't take it as a reality, then it only becomes difficult. And I say that from my own experience, when I couldn't tell anyone for 11 years. So I do understand how difficult it is, but that we need the courage for us to grow, for us to reach you know, a state of honesty, congruence with ourselves. We need to be honest.
Thank you, Ali. Perfect timing, as we are going to be heading towards a break, and there's a lot to take in, and I'm sure everyone that's watching you can appreciate how difficult this topic is to discuss, only because, especially in our community, it is not necessarily the easiest and the most open thing that people will actually admit to, nor know how to deal with it. And as much as we do have many sins in Islam, this is one that does come up where people want to either shy away from or not actually want to address. But alhamdulillah, we are here on British Muslim TV talking about this live. And if you want to interact with us, please do so, as we are heading into a short break. And I hope to see you soon and continue with our conversation with Ali. We hope to have some of your interaction with regards to your comments and also what you think so far. We'll see you in a short while. Take care. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. I'm here with Ali Asad Jaffery, who is talking about same-sex attractions, the struggles that we have amongst faith groups, especially in our community as Muslims. And this is definitely a topic which needed sort of attention, as there are people that struggle with coming out and understanding what to do next, and especially when it comes to disclosing that this is how they feel and what do they do next. So Ali, if you have same-sex attraction, or you say in your case, I mean, every story is completely different. And in your case, you had those feelings and you said you overcame them, where you're now married with a child to a female. And did you tell your spouse, or even if it's not you, would you advise someone who has now in that situation looking for a spouse, would you advise that you tell them that this was your past? Because a lot of people do struggle with identity, coming to terms with it for themselves, let alone to put that on to their future partner. And that could be detrimental, whether they tell them or they don't. So what's your opinion on that?
I think in a general sense, we do advise people to tell before the marriage. I know that before I found my wife, when the relationship reached a level where it was getting serious, this is when you're looking for marriage, when you're looking for a future spouse. And a good litmus test for that is when the other individual starts sharing vulnerable things about themselves, about their histories, then you know that your relationship has matured to a level where you can have these sensitive conversations. And that I always say it's a good litmus test for if that person is the right person, if they can see you for you and not for a label. So we always recommend, and obviously, we give advice on how to do it. And this is an often question which comes up in terms of how, we don't say, okay, do I need to be fully transparent? Well, no, we're not saying that, but we are saying that you need to be congruent with your spouse, so it's just fair on the other person, that they know what challenges are, and because marriage is a commitment for life. It's so it's something that you want to ensure you cover the right grounds before that.
It's a real challenge, though. I mean, it's, when we have these challenges of marriage, especially in our Muslim communities, the kind of criteria are so high on both sides. And then to have something like this, as much as there are many challenges, but this is really testing, because there's the worry of whether or not they're going to continue to love you in the fullest way, like they would normally, because of the feelings that they had before for another gender completely, which you cannot even compare with. And that, for me, I find that, it's really brave to actually, put yourself out there, to say it firstly, and then to have someone on the other hand who is willing to accept you for that, but also knowing that those feelings may come back, or it may stop them from going further in your relationship. So what's your thoughts on that? Because it is something that, regardless of you now saying what you're saying, but at the same time, we need to obviously be clear that we're not here to sort of like convert anyone in a particular way, nor make them stick in a particular way. It's just people's tendencies, people's behavior. And, you know, they do have struggles with something that they used to for a long time, and then to change and to not revert back to something that was maybe a habit, even if it wasn't an action, but even that feeling. Does that, and then you're also trying to not just convince your potential spouse, but your spouse's, you know, your future in-laws, the family. How does that work then? Would you even share it with the in-laws, the future potential in-laws, that you had this sort of tendency, you had these kind of feelings? And is that something that, you know, has to be worked over time, or is it possible to prove beforehand?
No, I completely agree that it is something which is difficult to discuss in our community on this issue, and things are so tender at the marriage phase when you're, you know, making sure, okay, everything's okay, you know, and you're kind of making sure everything's ticked off and you don't want anything to come within. But what I respond to that is, at what cost? So for example, if the spouse finds later, and from our experience, for most spouses, it wasn't the fact that their partner had same-sex attraction. It was more the understanding that they couldn't tell them, you know, or they didn't feel comfortable to tell them at that. So there's a trust deficit, which then builds because the other spouse feels, well, if you weren't able to tell me that, what else are you not able to tell me? So I think,
very true.
For in-laws, I always think that we think of relationships as nuclear. So, you know, what's between you, as the Quran says, they're clothing for you and you're clothing for them. So there needs to be that privacy in these matters. So I don't think the in-laws necessarily need to know. They probably will know at some point, but certainly don't need to know at the start.
What about people that want to continue in this path and they say that they cannot overcome this? Like, you obviously a trainee counsellor, and you know, you obviously have even a foundation set up for people that do have same-sex attraction, especially in the Muslim community, and people do turn to you. So you've had lots of experience, not just from yourself, but dealing with people in the community that have nowhere to go. And then the only support for people of faith is the LGBTQ. And you've opened up another area, which again, it's not telling them that they have to go in a particular way, but it's just an exploration, for example, understanding also their faith background, their culture, the families and things like that, but not directing them. So do you tell them though, or do you know of any science behind this? Because people can argue to say, well, you know, I really can't help this feeling, but there may be some studies. I read a few years ago, I'm not sure if it still applies now, that maybe with the hormones or testosterone in certain individuals, that can actually create these sort of lusts and desires a lot stronger with certain people. So we have to kind of be aware of this factor. But at the same time, what is your studies and research on people that do have, you know, same-sex attraction, and if they are saying, well, I can't help it, and this is just the way I want to continue?
Definitely. So there is, you know, like I said, there's client autonomy in terms of where the client wants to go. And we have had people who identify as LGBTQ Muslims, and they do come to us. And then when they see that, you know, we have a slightly different way of thinking, we do then direct them to other support methods, other support systems, which would you know, align with how they see faith and how they reconcile with their sexuality. in terms of science, the largest genome study done in the world, which looked at just under 500,000 individuals, proved that there was no gay gene. It looked at some biomarkers, but the argument that you're born that way is certainly something now science doesn't agree on. If we look at the work of the largest psychological body in the world, APA, with the work of Lisa Diamond, we see that there is sexual fluidity, so there is a fluidity in terms of our attractions. And even if you look at the B in the LGBT, which is bisexuality, we see that people are on a continuum, that these identities of even the straight identity, because we argue, these heterosexual or homosexual identities, they don't really help us by looking at it in a binary sense. Sexuality is much more complex than a label. So for people who want to explore their potential for opposite sex attractions should have the right. And we do have multiple case studies, multiple cases where people have reduced their same-sex attraction. Actually, just a recent study done this year, which followed 75 men, actually 7 of them were Muslim, for across 2 years, was peer-reviewed, showed that they had reduced their same-sex attraction, that increased their opposite sex attraction, and actually benefited from the therapy in this process. So we have recent studies which prove this. So we have science on the side of this, that there is potential for sexual fluidity. And I think nobody should be coerced down one path or the other. And I just like to bring in on this point, the government is consulting at the moment on therapies, on what they call conversion therapy. And I encourage members who are watching this, for the Muslims, to engage with that consultation and speak out for this minority, the minority which I represent, people who have the same-sex attraction, but they don't identify with it. They want to explore their potential opposite sex attractions, that they are not harmed or prevented by this law which comes in, which takes away our right to get help.
But the whole word of conversion itself, like I said at the beginning, doesn't that sort of like contradict and counter therapy? Because conversion is like you telling them that I'm going on to a different direction. Should that word not be taken out? It should just be therapy. Some people may argue that, Ali. But anyway, as I've just asked you that question, I've just realized that we are coming in towards a break, and we will pick this up again after we have a short moment of you just digesting everything that's said so far. And inshallah, we will see you in a short while. And thank you so much for tuning in and watching. And I hope to join you at the other end for the final part of Single Muslim Live. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. We're here on the final part of this program tonight, and it's gone by so quickly. And it is really a tough topic, I have to say, because there is so much taboo, controversy, and sensitivity around this. And we're only here not to direct anyone, but we do know our faith. We do know where the rulings are. But regardless of that, there are so many issues that are around relationships, which we have discussed, which is not, lawful in our faith. But at the same time, we do have people that, fornicate, we have people that lie and cheat, we have people that, you know, have relationships outside of marriages, before marriages, and we've discussed all of that. So this is no different tonight, where we are talking about people that struggles with their sexuality, their identity, and at the same time, this is something that we have an amazing, perfect guest for the show today. And Ali, thank you so much again for being with us. And I'm so happy to continue with you. And we have come to the last part of the show, but we've got definitely time, which I want to cram in. I've got so much more questions for you. When it comes to our Muslim community and the practical work of addressing this kind of, you know, sort of like conflicts that we do have between the gender, the sexuality, plus dealing with the community, you know, what is it that you would advise from a Muslim's perspective so that we can actually be more understanding, empathetic, not so judgmental, and at the same time, we know our faith, like we said, but there's so much out there that happens where we are striving in a particular way, and some people are just not where everybody else is, and we need to give more support and understanding. So what is the work that needs to be done?
I think you've mentioned it in that, you know, like as this show we're discussing about this topic, we are acknowledging that there are people in the Muslim community who are struggling with conflict in their sexuality, and it's okay. And if you do have friends, colleagues, and so on, not to judge them by a label. And you know, one of the core things that we do in our work is build salient friendships where we can, you know, what these people who are struggling are really looking for are deep friendships with the same sex, so they feel that, you know, they are part of the community. They're not different. They're still Muslims, and that we all have desires in that. So I think it's really important that the community doesn't shun these people away because of that. And we have, I think, the Mufti Yusuf put it so beautifully in that clip, the gay and Muslim clip, that we really need love and compassion for these people who may be struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last thing we need is for people to be ostracized in a particular way for a particular reason. And we do need to have more empathy and understanding and coming together to actually invite people still to the mosques, invite people to your gatherings, and not to just, you know, exclude anyone for this particular reason, which is what happens. And there's a lot of scare and there's a lot of fear in the community when people are feeling in this way. And like I said, again, I can't say enough how brave you are to come and speak tonight. And the fact that you actually have set up a foundation to help people that actually come from faith, especially in the Muslim community that have same-sex attraction. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what exactly does that involve? And, you know, give us the website, the name and things like that, so that anyone that's watching can reach out to you. Because like you said, there isn't not any much that's happening in the community right now, and they don't know how to deal with it.
No, thank you so much. I set up Strong Support, you know, based on the verse in the Quran with Prophet Lut alayhi salam, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a rukn and shadid, or strong support, because I couldn't find anything in the Muslim community which had this narrative where I didn't identify as LGBT, and I wanted to see if there was a potential for me to reduce my attractions and to marry, to have children, to have a life which was congruent, not just with my faith, but with my own values, with my own struggles. So you can reach us at www.strongsupport.co.uk. We offer a free 30-minute consultation. I myself have spoken to hundreds of Muslims across the globe. And I think the biggest thing, if you are watching this, to take away is that you're not alone. and that there is support and there is help which is available for if you're unsure. Or a lot of people, when they speak to me, I'm the first person that they've spoken to in their life about this. So I think it's a huge need that we need for safe spaces for Muslims to access where they won't be judged, and they can have these sensitive conversations like you've helped, alhamdulillah, on this show, Sister Fahima.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm really happy to have you on board tonight and to speak about this really sensitive topic. At the same time, when you say you've actually had so many people reach you, what is the top challenges that keeps coming up again and again? Because this is the show tonight and we've only got a few more minutes, but so that people can be really aware. I don't really want this to be like just, a presentation. I want it to be practical. So inshallah, that people are going to walk away and turn away, actually making a difference if they know someone or if they're feeling it themselves, or if they can even be part of something that's actually going to assist this, so that there isn't going to be any discrimination or any sort of negativity around this. And if anything, regardless of what their outcome is, they are free to choose what they want. We are living in a country where we follow the law of the land and we respect that as Muslims as well. So they are given that right to choose what they want. And we also have our faith, where many people are struggling with so many different things that are, unlawful. But at the same time, what would you sort of suggest and say that are the ongoing challenges that people come to you facing when they have these sort of same-sex attraction?
I think the biggest problem that we find is marriage. So, how do I get married while I have these same-sex attractions? And what we advise for people to do is to address the same-sex attractions first, to understand them. It isn't that we say they disappear, but what we encourage people is to go deeper into them, find out the causes, find out what I'm attracted to. If I'm attracted to someone else, what does that mean for myself? If I'm attracted to the same sex, does it mean there's some qualities which I don't have? Is it possible that I'm shaming myself in front of this individual? Am I putting them at a pedestal? And then the issues is, okay, how do I actually get into marriage? And, then we have the questions of how do I tell my spouse? And it's having conversations, like we said earlier, going through the developmental phase of how the attraction started, telling them that it's a struggle and so on. And the actual work, the practical work of recovery is all to do about self-esteem. It's all to do of going past and seeing where we took those negative messages, where in my own journey, where I thought, I could never play sports, I could never run, I could never do a physical activity, I could not lift weights. And when I challenged those beliefs, and when I created new experiences, new beliefs which challenged my old beliefs that I wasn't man enough, I couldn't do certain things, then I could experience the possibility for change. Change doesn't look like I'm completely opposite sex attracted. This is not what we're saying. In most of our journeys, what we find is we understand ourselves better. Once we understand ourselves better, we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. Once we understand our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps in bringing people to us which love us and care for us as we are, and they don't look at the same-sex attraction as an identity or a label or something bigger, which unfortunately we have today, where sexuality has become an identity rather than an attraction.
Thank you. Wow. You do some amazing work, Ali, and I do commend you for it and acknowledge all the hard work that you do, because you didn't just go through this experience just for yourself and your own future. You are actually out there place, and you're doing what needs doing, in a sense that you're actually putting yourself out to help. So people, especially in the Muslim community, who are actually feeling in this way and have nowhere to turn towards. And that's what it's about, is to have that support to guide you through it. And as you said, it's not just about the sexuality. There's so many things around it that people feel in a particular way that they need addressing, and that could help them through whichever way they want to go. So inshallah, we do actually have Ali's details, and I just want to thank you. If there's any last words, as we've only got a few seconds left, what would you like to say, Ali?
I just like to thank the channel, and I'd also like to ask anybody who wants further questions to please do reach out for help, and that things will get better, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you tonight. It's been really wonderful. I really respect you for being here and sharing your story. Thank you, viewers, for watching and allowing us the space to have these kinds of topics and shows. And it's only because they are definitely struggles within relationships. And as much as it is a very, sensitive topic, we have addressed it tonight. And please do keep sending in your comments and your questions and your queries, because we are going to address more and more of these in the coming shows. And we hope you have a lovely holiday and enjoy the break. Stay safe and well. Thank you so much from everyone here on British Muslim TV, and especially to my guest, Ali. And inshallah, we will see you in the next episode, for the last one for this year, next week, same time. Assalamu alaikum.